Hey everyone, I'm Mekkah, and it turns out I was wrong. Amelia is good for something. While I was preparing for a 7K special, my Amelia video exploded, and now I actually have a backlog of celebrations to work through. So as a thanks for all the support, here's another dissection of a character that's loved by the fanbase at large.
It's Lyn, hailing from Fire Emblem on Game Boy Advance.
Today, we're going to take a very close look at Lyn. Fire Emblem 7 was my first Fire Emblem, a game I started playing long before I ever saw Smash Brothers, so Lyn was actually the first Fire Emblem character that I met and connected with. I loved her interactions with Sane, Kent and the rest of the Lyn mode cast, and of course I used her. I thought she was amazing, she was fast, she got a lot of critical hits, and there was no way I was not going to use her. I mean, she's not just a lord, she was the lord of the game for me. Eliwood came like 10 chapters later and he wasn't nearly as flashy. As for Hectare, since my first playthrough was forced to be on Eliwood normal, I didn't get to see a whole lot of him, so he wasn't able to bump Lyn off the throne. It was only much later, when my focus shifted a bit from playing Fire Emblem to arguing about Fire Emblem on the internet, that I began to realize that Lyn actually has some serious flaws as a unit. Now here come the disclaimers. This video is about analyzing Lyn's uses in gameplay. It has nothing to do with her character and role in the story. I'm also not going to pretend that she's unusable because she's clearly not. Pretty much anyone is usable in Fire Emblem, and Lyn isn't even close to bad enough to be an exception. The question I'm going to attempt to answer is, how good is Lyn as a unit compared to the rest of the cast? What advantages and disadvantages are there to using Lyn throughout the entire game, and how do they stack up against each other? If you're watching this and you're a big fan of Lyn and you like to use her every time you play FE7, then go for it. I'm not telling you not to. I don't think you're making things easier on yourself, but to each their own. FE7 certainly isn't hard enough to warrant only using the bestest units ever. Oh, speaking of hard, I will be focusing on Hectare hard mode because it's the highest difficulty setting in the game, and FE7 is pretty easy as a whole. Using higher difficulty settings when comparing units is generally a good idea because it makes units more distinct. If every playable character can one-round KO every enemy, then there is very little point in comparing them since they're also similar. Basically, it's the best way to put their abilities to the test. I will drop a note on lower difficulty somewhere along the way though, since I'm sure not everyone plays Hectare hard mode all the time, but it will be a focus on Hectare hard mode. This video is not just strictly about Lyn by the way, but also about broader subjects that also apply to other units. For example, I'm going to talk about how important durability and one-to range options are, and what exactly it means for a unit to be a lord and be force deployed. So Lyn reunites with the player in chapter 16 of Hectare mode, along with her retainers. If you didn't play Lyn mode beforehand, then Lyn will be at level 4 with these stats, but if you did, then I'm going to assume she's around level 10 with these average stats instead. If you don't know why I'm using average stats, maybe you watched my video on Amelia, but the bottom line is that it's a necessary compromise between RNG blessing and screwing, both of which can warp someone's perception of a unit. If I talk about Lyn with my own experience in mind, and you talk about your Lyn with yours in mind, then we're never going to agree on anything, because the RNG might have given us completely different ideas of how good Lyn is. By the way, I would have grabbed these stats straight off Fire Emblem averages instead of Seren's Forest, since the former is way more detailed, but Fire Emblem averages no longer has stats for FE7 for some reason. You can sort of find the front page for it through Wayback Machine, but you can't check out any of the character pages anymore, which is a shame. I don't know the exact cause of this, but considering fewiki.net, part of the domain name of fea.fewiki.net, redirects to this atrocity of a website, I think I know what to blame. Let's take a look at Lyn's start in Hectare mode. The first thing you'll probably notice about Lyn is that she's very fast. Her 14 speed is only beaten by Matthew and Guy out of the people you've recruited so far, and it's close to Raven's base speed with hard mode bonuses factored in. At this point in the game, most of your units tend to not double reliably. Mages, Cavaliers and Archers escape getting doubled by playable characters like Eliwood, Hectare, Lowen, etc. Besides the aforementioned fast sorties, only Marcus is doubling enemies in that speed bracket reliably. She has more trouble with Myrmidons and Mercenaries though. She can double the slowest ones that have 10 speed, but it's not uncommon for them to creep a bit higher. Her offense is helped out by the Manikari, her personal weapon. Regardless of how much you may have used it in Lyn mode, it's back at full uses, and its 8 might and effectiveness against armored and mounted units sure boosts her power. It also has a significant 20 crit rate that will kick in more often than not. However, Lyn's strength is pretty low at 7. That means she has around 15 attack with the Manikari, which isn't bad all things considered, but it leaves something to be desired. To put it in perspective, this is about as much as you'd expect Lowen to have at this point when he's using an Armor Lance. With the Manikadi equipped, it's not too noticeable of a flaw, especially when she's attacking against enemies she has effectiveness against, but she misses out on 2-hit KOing archers, mercenaries, and even some Pegasus Knights, not even the most bulky enemy types. She will 2-hit KO cavaliers though, which is a plus. I swear I'm not trying to sound as schizophrenic as the old Lyn Wikia entry. Lyn is just a character with a lot of ups and downs. Now, on the durability front, oh boy, we're looking at roughly 22 HP, 4 defense, and 3 resistance. Her ability to withstand physical attacks is on par with Urk and Sarah, and only slightly above Lucius's. That's really bad. That means it only takes 15 attack to KO her in 2 hits. Taking the weapon triangle into account, that's a majority of the enemies on her joining chapter. The only enemies she survives more than 2 hits from are the really weak enemies with iron weapons like some of the archers and mercenaries. Those still KO her in 3 hits though. Again, let me put it in perspective. How do other units fare against an enemy with a measly 15 attack? Level 8 Eliwood takes 8 damage to his 23 HP, surviving 2 hits. Level 9 Eliwood is actually fairly likely to have 24 HP and 8 defense, surviving 3 hits. Level 10 Florina takes 10 damage to her 22 HP, surviving 2 hits. Level 10 Sane takes 7 damage to his 26 HP, surviving 3 hits. And this is me picking units with mediocre to average durability. For units with good durability, 15 attack is an absolute joke. A level 9 Lowen takes 5 damage to his 29 HP, surviving as many as 5 rounds. Base level Marcus also takes 5 damage, but he has 31 HP, so he survives 6 rounds of combat. A level 9 Hectare takes 3 damage to his 26 HP, getting 9 round KO'd. Base level Oswin takes 2 damage, meaning it would take this enemy 14 rounds to KO him. There's a lot more ways I can show how crappy Lyn's durability is right now, but I won't bore you with the numbers. The point is Lyn is made of wet paper, and this severely restricts how you play with her. If Lyn attacks an enemy and she eats a counterattack, she either needs healing or protection from all surrounding enemies, or she can die. Whenever enemy phase rolls around, there can't be more than one enemy nearby, or there's a risk of her dying. I know there's one aspect of Lyn's durability that I've left undiscussed so far, and that's her avoidance. After all, she's based on a Myrmidon class, and Myrmidons aren't meant to take hits, right? They're supposed to dodge them completely, that's how they work. Well, at level 10 she can be expected to have 14 to 15 speed and 10 luck, so let's say 15 times 2 plus 10 is 40 avoid. This amount of avoid is high for this point in the game, but it's not enough to be reliable. The only enemies you can count on her dodging are axe users who only have like 24 displayed hit, which gives them like a 12% chance to hit her when taking the 2RN system into account. She can still get hit, but odds are very much in her favor. Other enemy types, however, are pretty accurate against her. Sword users, such as this Sword Cavalier, have around 87 hits, or 47 displayed hit, which means they have around a 44% chance to hit her. She will probably dodge him, but are you willing to bet her life on it? Are you going to leave Lyn exposed to 2 of these attacks, risking the 19% chance of a death and thus a restart? That wasn't even the most accurate enemy type either. A Steel Sword Mercenary has 97 hits, or a 57 displayed hit rate, roughly a 63% chance to connect. An Iron Lance Cavalier has Weapon Triangle advantage on her, so he has 63 displayed hit against Lyn. That's an 82% chance to hit her. The high-ish avoid looks nice on paper, but in practice it doesn't give Lyn a whole lot of extra flexibility, since for her to be safe you still have to play as if she's going to get hit, unless she's fighting a group of axe users. Of course, this is just Lyn's starting point and it's not all that matters, but her performance at base level is something you have to work through and it's kind of a pain. Just like with Amelia, even if Lyn gets better later on, I have to work with her with this level of performance to get her there. Another unfortunate aspect of Lyn is that right now she can only use swords. Swords are arguably the worst weapon type to be locked into besides bows, for several reasons. For one, lance users are the most common enemy type, so she's almost perpetually facing weapon triangle disadvantage. This reduces her damage output and puts her in a bad defensive situation, since lance users gain 15 hits on her and will generally 2-hit KO her. The other is that swords, unlike lances and axes, do not have viable 1-2 range options. Lyn can never counter archers and almost never counter mages and other enemies with 1-2 range. This makes her a serious enemy phase liability because any enemy with the option of attacking her from afar will go for her, both because enemies do not like getting countered and because they like exploiting defensively weak units. Anytime Lyn lures a mage or archer into attacking her, that's an enemy that could have been countered. Her enemy phase offense against those people is a flat 0. Even Dorcas and Bartre, 2 flawed units with speed issues, have better enemy phase offense against 2 range enemies. I'm not saying Dorcas and Bartre are better than Lyn overall, but this is a significant issue that Lyn has that they do not. Consider the following. You're fighting a group of 4 enemies with 1-2 range, and you can use either Lyn or Dorcas to clean them up. Lyn can KO them in 1 round, while Dorcas needs 2 rounds. However, Lyn can only kill 1 per turn, since she doesn't counter them on enemy phase, so she needs 4 turns to take care of them all. Dorcas, however, only needs 2 turns since he counters them all on enemy phase. What's more, Dorcas' superior durability will let him survive more easily, and he can spend a player phase healing himself with a vulnerary if needed, without increasing the time it takes him to take care of the enemy phase. This is a perfect demonstration of what the difference can be between having and not having 1-2 range, as well as the difference between high and low durability. It completely switches around the offensive advantage that Lyn would have had in a straight up statistical comparison. At this point you might say, now come on, all of this isn't a problem with Lyn, it's a problem with you as a player. You're trying to make Lyn do things she's not good at. You're putting her in hypothetical situations where her weak points are showing, while you should be playing her to her strengths. A frail sword user like Lyn shouldn't be fighting hordes of lance using enemies, or enemies with 1-2 range. She should be fighting axe users, or bow users on enemy phase, or make use of the Manikadi's effectiveness. She shouldn't be exposed on enemy phase, of course not, that's just bad strategy. And you know what, I am inclined to agree with you, Lyn shouldn't be doing those things. Having Lyn fight enemies she cannot counter is a bad strategy. Having Lyn face chances of death is a bad strategy. That's why I've been saying that Lyn is restricted. There are things she cannot do safely, and there are a lot of them. I also have a lot of other units that can do these things safely. As I've shown, there are a lot of units that have a lot more durability than she does, and a lot of them have access to javelins or hand axes. And they can put those to work to compensate for any offensive disadvantage they might have. Some of them, like Lowen, might even have a mount to further amplify their lead. I've shown in the Amelia video how movement can also have a positive impact on durability, offense, or both. We're probably in agreement that Lyn shouldn't be in situations that are bad for her, but you might not agree that I'm thinking of Lyn as a worse unit for this. But the problem here is twofold. For one, Lyn is a lot more restricted than other characters. Other units locked to swords have the same problem, but at least someone like Guy has better stats than she does, while someone like Matthew has thief utility to compensate. Lucius might have worse durability, but at least he can use his 2 range to avoid taking a counter attack, unlike Lyn. And this 2 range also dissuades enemies from attacking him. Or you can purposely have him get attacked by an archer on enemy phase if you want to, because he does counter attack. The other problem is that Lyn doesn't really compensate for all these restrictions with a specific niche where she shines. What does Lyn do that other units do not? She can 1-round KO Cavaliers thanks to the Manikadi and her high speed, but like I said before, other units can work through Cavaliers just as efficiently thanks to their higher durability and or 1-2 range. There's even some high durability units that can 1-round KO Cavaliers, like Marcus and Hectare. Yes, those are 2 really strong units, but their existence makes the demand for Lyn's specialty a lot lower. What else can Lyn do, preferably safely? It's not exactly difficult to dispose of archers or brigands on player phase. Lyn's durability does of course improve as she levels up, though not by a whole lot. She has a 70% chance to grow in HP and 20% in defense, which will eventually put her in 3-hit KO territory against the most common enemy attack values. At level 15, for example, she can be expected to have 26 HP and 5 defense, which means it now takes about 18 attack to 2-hit KO her, instead of the 15 that it used to be. There's still plenty of enemies that reach this threshold, and some come dangerously close. Any enemy with a steel lance 2-hit KOs her, for example. All the fighters in Wyverns and Kinship's Bond reach it with their Reaver weapons, meaning she's not safe regardless of whether she's wielding a sword or a Lance Reaver, and the Lance Reaver in that map have 17 attack, which is kind of close. Steelblade Myrmidons in 4-fanged offense, for example, have 20 attack. Most units have higher growths in HP and defense than Lyn, and therefore their durability improves more. Remember these units I mentioned before? Wanna know how they're doing against that 18 attack value that 2-hit kills Lyn? Level 15 Eliwood has 29 HP and 9 defense. He takes 9 damage and survives 3 hits. Level 15 Florida has 25 HP and 6 defense. She takes 12 damage and survives 2 hits. Level 15 Sane has 30 HP and 9 defense. He takes 9 damage and survives 3 hits. And what about the people with good durability? Level 15 Lowen has 35 HP and 12 defense. He takes 6 damage and survives 5 hits. Level 4 Marcus has 33 HP and 10 defense. He takes 8 damage and survives 4 hits. Level 15 Hectare has 31 HP and 15 defense. He takes 3 damage and survives 10 hits. Level 15 Oswin has 33 HP and 16 defense. He takes 2 damage and he survives a massive 16 hits. I'm also not cherry picking here by choosing an 18 attack enemy. Almost any value makes Lyn's defense look bad. Say 20 attack, Eliwood now takes 11 damage and survives 2 hits. Florina takes 12 damage, survives 1 hit. Sane takes 11 damage, survives 2 hits. Lowen takes 8 damage, survives 4 hits. Marcus takes 10 damage and survives 3 hits. Hectare takes 5 damage and survives 6 hits. And Oswin, he takes 4 damage and survives 8 hits. Or how about a lower value then, like 16 attack, from which Lyn can survive 2 hits. Eliwood takes 7 damage, survives 4 hits. Lorena takes 10 damage and survives 2 hits. Sane takes 7 damage and survives 4 hits. Lowen takes 4 damage and survives 8 hits. Marcus takes 6 damage, survives 5 hits. Hectare takes 1 damage and survives 30 hits. And Oswin takes no damage at all. No matter which way you slice it, Lyn's durability looks either significantly worse or just plain pills in comparison. This is on top of all the issues with 2 range attacks. Another problem for Lyn as the game goes along is that more and more people start double attacking. When she joined, she was one of the 4 units doubling reliably. However, the speed of player characters increases a lot faster than the speed of
the enemy.
Take a look at these enemies in New Resolve, for example. Monks that only have 6 or 7 speed but also get weighed down by 2 thanks to their Shine Tomes. Pegasus Knights with 9, 10 or 11 speed but also get weighed down by 3. Wyverns with 8 to 10 speed. Brigands and Archers with around 7 to 8. A level 15 Lowen has around 11 speed and will double every enemy with 7 AS or less, and he's not a particularly fast unit. Sane is known to have decent but not fantastic speed, and he's getting close to 12 speed, so capable of doubling 8 AS enemies. Eliwood, another unit that's got pretty average speed, has between 12 and 13 speed now, so he can and will double enemies with up to 9 AS. Take a somewhat fast unit like Urk. He has 14 speed at this point, which is enough to double every enemy listed here. Kent is in the same boat. He's got 13 speed, so he'll double every type of enemy here except for the fastest Wyverns. In other words, Lyn's speed is starting to get overkill, and this main advantage of hers is diminishing in use the further we go. Enemy attack speed actually goes down from here as they start carrying steel weapons and heavier tomes. Crazed Beast, for example, has a lot of Steel Lance Cavaliers, Steel Lance Pegasus Knights, Halberd Pirates, and archers using steel bows and ballistas. This is a point in the game where even slow units like Oswin can double. Her lower strength is also more and more of a factor. With the Mani Kadi, she can usually get the jump on things it's effective against, assuming she can live with taking a counterattack from a lance, but there are plenty of enemies that will survive 2 hits from her 18 attack. And Naga help her if you're trying to conserve the Mani Kadi, since it doesn't have infinite uses. With an iron sword, she's only packing 15 attack, and if she tries to go for a heavier steel sword, her attack speed is reduced to a measly 12 to 13, also known as what Eliwood has at this point. She still doubles pretty reliably, but having 10 less avoid is going to cut into her chances of dodging. The best way to fix her mediocre offense is buying her killing edges at the Dragon's Gate. The secret shop is pretty far out of the way, but it is an option. Sadly, killing edges only have 20 uses, so if she's going to be using them a lot, they'll need replacing all the time. It's not a big issue, just an inconvenience, but personally, I prefer it when my units can just spam iron weapons and be good for a while. If I'm going to be using weapons that run out after 20 attacks, I at least expect them to have 1-2 range. Another thing that's starting to hurt is Lyn's annoying promotion. In order to promote, Lyn needs to use a Heaven Seal, which comes with a lot of drawbacks. The tiniest one is that it's twice as expensive as a regular promotion item, such as a Hero Crest. It has a worth of 20,000 gold, which means it could be sold for 10,000 gold, while a Hero Crest is worth 10,000 gold and can be sold for 5,000 gold. I don't consider this a huge problem since gold is so plentiful in this game, especially with the silver card, but it can be a factor in ranked runs. The bigger problem is that you receive Heaven Seals awfully late in the game. You get the first one in the Vida chapter, Unfulfilled Heart, which is chapter 26 in Hectare Hard mode. For the sake of comparison, your first Knight Crest and Hero Crest come in chapter 17, your first Elysian Whip and Guiding Ring are in chapter 18, and the first Orion's Bolt is in chapter 19. That means characters that use regular promotion items have the option of promoting as many as 7 to 9 chapters earlier, not even counting the guidance chapters in between. Some of these even have multiple copies coming before the Heaven Seal. There's 3 Hero Crests available by chapter 23 for instance. The option to promote and gain a stat boost is a huge deal. People who have been watching my content for a while know I'm an advocate of promoting before level 20, but even if you aren't, you've probably been frustrated by having a unit run around capped at level 20 before, unable to gain EXP. I know Lords promoting late is par for the course in Fire Emblem, but that doesn't make it any less of a drawback for Lyn. Promotion also tends to boost people's speed by 1 or 2 points, by the way, putting them ever closer to that threshold they need to double FE7 slow enemies. For instance, remember that Lowen could only double like half of those enemies in New Resolve? With a promotion, he gains an extra point of speed, letting him double another extra segment of enemies. Some units benefit even more than that. Kanas only has an effective attack speed of around 9 or 10 at level 15, since he's weighed down by flux. But promoting gives him a massive +3 speed and 1 constitution, so his AS jumps to 13 to 14, where 13 doubles almost everything and 14 doubles everything. The issues with the Heaven Seal don't end there though. If you're using both Eliwood and Lyn, or in the case of Eliwood mode, both Hectare and Lyn, there's some fierce competition over that Heaven Seal. Both characters have a lot to gain from promotion, but only one can get promoted. If I hadn't been using Lyn, and instead I picked someone who used a regular promotion item, or even no promotion item at all, this problem would not exist. But instead, Lyn introduces a lose-lose situation. Either she doesn't promote and remains her weak, sword-locked 5 movement self, or she causes Eliwood to go through the same fate, at least until the next Heaven Seal comes. And if you thought the wait for the first Heaven Seal was long, check out the second one. Not until the end of Battle Before Dawn, chapter 28, do you get the second Heaven Seal. At this point there's only like 7 real chapters left in the game, not including battle preparations and a Berserker for what I hope to be obvious reasons. Just to emphasize how big of a difference promotion makes for these two, let's take a look. In Eliwood's case, I would say his promotion changes him from a liability into an actual good unit, as he gains 2 things that I value very much: a mount and the ability to use lances, and with that, javelins. In the Emilia video, I went very in depth on the benefit of having extra movement, and in this one I talked a lot about 1-2 range, so I hope I can be brief here. Even just one of these will be enormous difference makers. Lances also give Eliwood much better control of the weapon triangle. He can now escape weapon triangle disadvantage against lances and gain weapon triangle advantage over swords. And of course, lances also simply have more might than swords. Last but not least, there's a flat stat bonus that a promotion gives. In Eliwood's case, he gets +4 HP, +2 strength, +1 speed, +1 defense, +3 resistance, and +2 constitution. All of this is what Lyn deprives him of by stacking the first Heaven Seal. Now I can hear you think, but Lyn isn't the only person who uses a promotion item that someone else could use. If any unit takes a promotion item, it usually comes at the cost of someone else, unless no other unit on your squad needs it. But no other promotion situation is nearly as bad as this one. As I said earlier, there's a grand total of 3 hero crests before chapter 26, and most people don't even like using Barter or Doorcast, leaving only Guy and Raven. Similar situation with the Orion's Bolt. It's very rare to even see one, let alone more than one of Wrath, Rebecca and Will in one playthrough, and there's at least 1 and sometimes 2 of them before chapter 26. Elysian Whips, there's 1 in chapter 18, 1 in chapter 21, and another in chapter 25, which is nice because all flyers are really good, though rarely are you using more than 3. Guiding Rings, you have 3 between chapter 18, chapter 20, and chapter 23 in Hectare mode. The worst promotion item situation for normal units is with the Night Crest, but even in that case you get 1 in chapter 17, 1 in chapter 22, and you have the option of promoting either Kent or Sane in Lyn mode using Wallace's Night Crest. If there's still more units than promotion items, you get an Earth Seal in chapter 24, which sadly doesn't work on Lyn or Eliwood. So let's say we aren't using Eliwood, or we're going to ignore the cost of leaving him unpromoted and give Lyn that Heaven Seal anyway. What do we get out of it? Stat-wise, this is actually one of the better promotions in the game. Lyn gets 3 HP, 2 strength, 2 skill, 3 defense, 5 resistance and 1 movement, and 1 constitution. It's pretty well designed in this regard, focusing on fixing her bad durability instead of further raising her overkill speed. She also gains the ability to use D-level bows, which is It fits her character, sure, but it's just about the worst additional weapon she could have gotten. Her problem was not being able to counter at range, but when she equips a bow instead, she now cannot counter up close, so she's still bad against swarms of 1-2 range enemies. At least she can stand at the edge of their range now, or on the other side of a wall, but it's still far from ideal. It also has effective damage against an enemy type she was previously bad against, Wyverns and to a lesser extent Pegasus Knights, and she can avoid counterattacks now. It's an improvement sure, but axes or lances would have been better. At level 21, Lyn has around 32 HP, 13 to 14 strength, 20 to 21 skill, 20 speed, 15 to 16 luck, 9 defense and 11 resistance. Her durability is now quite a bit better. It now takes 25 attack to 2-hit KO her, and this is a hard benchmark for most enemies to reach. Steel Lance Wyvern Riders and Unfulfilled Hearts get around 24 attack. However, she's still relatively easy to 3-hit KO, and I don't think you'll be surprised to learn that other playable characters again are greatly outclassing her in the durability department. Not even picking the most durable characters again. 23 Sane, for example, has 38 HP and 12 defense. 25 attack does 13 damage to him, so lives 2 hits. 24 attack only does 12 by the way, which he survives 3 hits from. Base level Pent has 33 HP and 11 defense. He can live 2 hits from 24 or 25 attack enemies, or if Louise is in range, he can survive 3 hits from a 24 attack enemy. 21 Dart has 46 HP and 10 defense. 25 attack does 15 damage to him, so he lives 3 hits. And if we pick a very tanky character instead, the results look even more laughable. Base level Hawkeye has 50 HP and 14 defense. 24 attack is basically tickling him, he takes 10 damage, living 4 hits. If he has even 1 more point of HP or defense, or the enemy has 1 less point of attack, he can live an extra hit. 21 Lowen has 41 HP and 16 defense. 24 attack does 8 damage, so he lives 5 hits. This is ignoring that these units also have a better weapon type against most enemies, or in the case of the Paladins, all enemies due to their weapon triangle control, which grants them +1 or even +2 defense in some cases relative to Lyn. Overall, I'd say promoted Lyn is capable of contributing, but isn't exactly spectacular. It's an improvement, but it's not like a Master Knight promotion where a formerly useless unit becomes super OP. She still has no mount and still can't deal with huge groups of enemies on her own in an efficient manner. Almost every other unit you can choose from in FE7 offers at least one of those benefits. If there's one saving grace, it's that she's very fast, and late game Hectare hard mode is one instance where that could be very impactful. Cog of Destiny's Valkyries. In a sea of slow enemies, these guys, or girls, I don't know, can catch unsuspecting players off guard with their insane speed and 1-2 range. They can attack from afar and hit on a unit's lower resistance stat, rendering your regular tanking methods useless. They also have 8 movement, courtesy of their horses. Can Lyn turn things around by whipping out her Manikari against these mounted threats? The answer is maybe. Lyn is fast, but so are the Valkyries. The level 8 ones seem to hover around 18 to 20 speed, so Lyn would need 2 to 4 speed level ups in order to double them after promoting. She can't have more than 20 speed after promoting because her unpromoted cap is 20 and her promotion bonuses do not include speed. Leveling up speed sounds like an easy task for Lyn, but her promoted XP gain is pretty slow. Most FE7 enemies are unpromoted, and due to hard mode's harsh XP cut, a promoted enemy killing an unpromoted one is going to earn you like 6 or 7 points of XP. That means it takes like 16 kills to get a single level up. And she's not guaranteed to level up speed. And she needs to double or else she won't 1-round KO, because despite the effective might, she cannot 1-hit KO. Between her 14 strength and her doubled 8 might, she'll have around 30 attack power, and you need closer to 38 to get a 1-hit KO on a Valkyrie. She will still double some of the Valkyries probably, especially the ones with Hellfire, because they are slow, but it's not exactly a shining performance. Jafar, for instance, is much better at this job since he has a massive 24 base speed. Other units can use brave weapons to get the kill without even eating a counter. Also, the fact that Lyn is very borderline doubling means it actually matters here if she weighs herself down in order to use a different weapon, such as a longbow or a killer bow. So even in this moment, where the situation almost seems tailor-made for a fast sword user with a personal weapon effective against horses, she's no better than mediocre. As far as I'm concerned, if she cannot shine here, she's not exactly shining anywhere. There's only one final part of this game that I gotta discuss real quick, and yeah, that's the final chapter. Spoilers ahead if you haven't played it yet. Lyn gets a freshly made up personal weapon called the Soul Kari, and amazingly it's weaker than a silver sword and heavier than a silver axe. In fact, it's heavier than the Basilicos. With its 14 weight, it brings down Lyn's attack speed by 8. That means a 2010 Lyn will only average about 18 speed with it, and even a Lyn with her speed capped only has 22. I think it's hilarious and sad at the same time, honestly. Against the Fire Dragon, the very thing this weapon is meant to be used against, there is a pretty high chance she's not even doubling since he has 16 attack speed. Also, Lyn at 2010 averages 38 to 39 HP. The Fire Dragon has 39 attack in Hectare hard mode and ignores defenses. There's a good chance Lyn gets 1-hit KO'd here. The other final chapter enemies are all very varied and I can't be bothered doing an in-depth analysis on each of them. If she doesn't use the Soul Kari, her attack is seriously lacking, and if she does, she runs the risk of getting doubled by the faster bosses. Brandon, the only one she has weapon triangle advantage over, has 51 attack after taking weapon triangle into account, which 1-hit KOs your average Lyn up to level 2012. Even if she doesn't 1-hit KO her, there's also a Mook next to him that could finish her off with his silver bow. So that's Lyn's performance throughout FE7 in a nutshell. I don't know about you, but I don't think it seems very impressive. On the whole, her offensive capabilities seem about average, while her durability is arguably the worst in the game of any combat unit. Then there's the lack of a mount, her sword lock for over half of the campaign, and her promotion problem. It's pretty easy to see how she ended up fairly low on the Democratic Reddit tier list, spot 30 out of 42, barely escaping the bottom 10. And yet, a lot of people love using Lyn. Not in the last place because she's a very popular character of course, but I think it's also because the Lord class seems to kind of indicate that you have to. It used to be considered obligatory to always use your lords. Why wouldn't you? They're the main characters. You're pretty much forced to use them, right? A lot of people still have this mentality, even though I would argue that in FE7, it's actually easier to not use Lyn at all than to use her. Lyn's class being called Lord doesn't do anything for her. She might as well be called Female Myrmidon. There's only a couple of distinctive features about her that make her different from, say, Guy. One of those is that her death causes a game over, but most people will reset a chapter if any unit dies, not just Lyn, so in practice this means very little. The other is more significant, and I would guess it's the reason people are hesitant to not use Lyn. She's force deployed in a couple of chapters, including the final. Now, just because a unit is force deployed at some points doesn't mean you have to train them. It means that if you don't train them, you need to keep them out of harm's way in the chapters they're forced in, and if you do train them, you get the benefit of a free extra unit that you otherwise would not be able to use. So, let's see how hard it is to keep Lyn away from combat in those maps if we don't train her, and how much we'd get out of training her if we did. The first map she's force deployed is obviously her joining map. There's not a whole lot of difference between the two scenarios here since she hasn't had any time to train in Hectare mode yet, but I'll take a quick look anyway. As I said before, Lyn gets 2-hit KO'd by most enemies here even if she's level 10, so she needs a high degree of protection. Regardless of whether you train her or not, taking care of the Pegasus with Will and the mercenaries with Saint and Kent is the best way to go about this map. Lyn is decent against the brigand reinforcements from the bottom right, and that's about it. Next one is Dragon's Gate. There's a lot of enemies weak to the Manikadi on this map, but other than the nomads, they all hurt her significantly on the counterattack, and there's a lot of ranged enemies around that can finish her off if she's weakened. The high enemy density and the cramped corridors make Lyn a pretty poor candidate for the front lines here, so it's better to keep her away from the action. This is easily doable because there is no enemies threatening your starting position for a very long time. Only on turn 8 will a pair of Pegasi reinforce from the bottom left, and that's if you haven't killed Darren before then. What's more, they're the only reinforcements in the starting area, and you kinda have to protect this place anyway since Merlinus is there and you want to keep him available so you can maximize your purchases from the secret shop. So it looks like you don't really lose anything from just hiding Lyn there. In New Resolve, Eliwood is forced but Lyn is not, so we'll move on to Kinship's Bond. Again, the starting point is very easy to defend, and you have to anyway since Nils is there and if he's attacked you get a game over. Lyn has to recruit Wrath, but you can easily rescue drop Lyn so that she can recruit him by turn 2, and then have Wrath carry her to a safe space, either where Nils is or where Wrath comes from. Both of those places never get attacked unless you purposely lure enemies there. If you have a trained Lyn, the front lines are very dangerous for her, since Reaver weapons are a dangerous mix of strong and accurate, and she dies in 2 hits to almost any combination of enemies. The hardest one on paper is probably Unfulfilled Heart, since it's a little bit cramped with all the mountains and the wyverns have free reign. However, the wyverns only come from the corners, and it's pretty easy to kill them with pens before they even come close. You can also simply rescue drop Lyn to where Merlinus is on one of the early turns, and that way it's easier to keep her safe. I mentioned that a promoted Lyn could help shooting the wyverns here, but she is also an enemy phase liability that way. It's a defend map anyway, meaning there's no real objective for her to help complete. Lyn is also forced into Sands of Time, but you have to protect the throne or else you get a game over. Enemies will never reach the throne room, and if they do, that's on you as a player, since it's very easy to just take the fight to them and there's no real reason to retreat. Just like the last map I discussed, the objective is to defend, so Lyn isn't really doing anything to speed things up. She's also not exactly amazing at fighting generals due to their high defense and mix of lances and axes. The Manikadi is effective, but even with effective might, she cannot 2-hit KO. She can be okay against druids and snipers though, thanks to her ability to use longbows, though she will require protection if she weighs herself down with that. That leaves us with the final chapter. Funnily enough, this is one of the easiest maps to keep Lyn safe on. Simply clear one of the 6 boss rooms and put her in there, and there you go, she's safe. If you're scared of the bolting sage, just kill him on the turn he appears and he'll never attack you. Also, because I know people love to bring this up, yes, she's one of the few people who can fight the fire dragon, but she barely contributes. I already mentioned how she might not double and is at the risk of getting 1-hit KO'd, but it's also easier to just let Athos go to work with the Lunatome. The fire dragon is not a reason to train your lord. In summary, there's one chapter where it's kind of tricky but still doable to defend her. Generally, there's always a spot on the map that's either devoid of enemies or that has to be protected anyway, so having a base level Lyn running around doesn't really inconvenience you as a player. I would actually say it's more of a hassle to keep her alive if she's being deployed and actively used in every map than if you just leave her at base level. So there you have it, a detailed analysis of Lyn. You might have gotten the impression that I have a vehement dislike for Lyn for picking her apart like this, but I don't. I enjoyed using her on my first playthrough, I liked her character. Nowadays I'm a bit more lukewarm on her, but I don't hate her. I just think that there's a lot of people out there that use her because they feel they have to, and that people overlook her flaws because they like her as a character. By no means is she as bad as Amelia, but she's not a character that I would recommend to any newer player going into Hectare hard mode. The other modes are a lot more forgiving, with super weak enemies, insane XP gain, though I would still argue it's easier to pick characters with more movement, better ranged options, an early promotion, and more durability. If you still want to use Lyn every day until the end of time, then be my guest. The beauty of Fire Emblem is that everyone can use whoever they like, and if using Lyn is what you enjoy, then let nobody stop you. But if someone tells you have to use Lyn because she's a lord, or that she's a really good unit, please link them to this video. That's all I've got to say. Thank you so much for watching, thanks to everyone who subscribed to me, and hopefully I'll see you again.